Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast with your hosts, Jason Balin and Ian Horowitz.
What's up, Ian? Happy Thursday, buddy.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good. I had to say the happy Thursday. I got a buddy of mine that we do some deals with, and every time I call him, he's like, "Hey, happy Monday, Jason. Happy Tuesday, Jason. Happy Wednesday, Jason." And he's just a happy-go-lucky, nice guy. And
yeah,
you know what? Maybe that rubbed off on me a little bit, so maybe I should start doing the same thing.
There you go. I'm going to do a couple quick shares while you get this thing started, because I think I'm going to be doing a lot of talking here in a second. So,
fair enough. So super fun topic today on the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. If you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome. We have a lot of fun on this show, and it's also very interactive. So there will be a comment box under Facebook, under YouTube, wherever you're watching this. Feel free to comment. Feel free to share. I've got some interesting controls here. Look, I just push a button and please share this broadcast. So a lot of fun. So we're going to continue. So it's definitely an interactive show. If you want to hop on live and ask a question, we have the ability to do that as well. We can share a link with you. So the topic for today is a case study of a recent 76-unit apartment building that was acquired. We'll talk about in a little bit who that was acquired by, and we got all the details that we're going to go through. Where the deal came from, how it was structured, how it was financed, how capital was raised, everything related to it. We're going to go through. We also have Shane from Perry Hall Investment Groups on the line that's going to hop in a second, and he'll introduce himself in about a minute. And because he had some involvement in the acquisition of finding this project. So in a second, he'll introduce himself. What else we got to cover today, Ian?
I think this is going to take up a lot of time, but if we get to it at the end, there's some new eviction stuff going on. I've seen a bunch of emails going back and forth, so I feel like we need to share some news on what's going on in the world. But I think most importantly is to get through this case study, because there's a lot of stuff going on. Awesome.
All right, well, let me bring Shane in real quick and call it a day. What's up, Shane?
Hey guys, happy Thursday, Jason and Ian.
See, man.
Yeah,
it's a trend, man.
Really appreciate you guys inviting me on.
Sure, no problem.
That was a nice treat. I was excited to be on board. Yeah, I've been watching you guys' stuff, so I was glad to come on board. I just had one quick question for you, Jason.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Can you hear
What's
me?
your question? Yeah.
Yeah. So Ian, he's probably one of the driest guys I know. Like, I have another friend that I never even say how's it going to. We just get straight to business.
Yep.
Obviously, you're a bubbly, happy podcast guy, and you got to work with Ian. How do you do this working with him? What do you do to pump him up? To give him some Monster drink and stuff?
Yeah, I think both of us are anti-caffeine, actually. So I think it's just we both just naturally have it. So and actually the funny thing is I'm a little bit more outspoken than him. Surprise. So
I'm just
it works.
Chop, but yeah, he's been a good friend for a long time. So I'm happy to be on board.
Yeah, no, good. Well, welcome. So let's just start off with this real quick, then we'll dive in. Shane, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your company. We'll start with that, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so Joe Hartman and I, which he's my brother-in-law, started Perry Hall Investment Group, I would say, 6, 7, 8 years ago. We actually started in real estate about 15 years ago. We started doing tax sales right before the bubble. Joe went to Investors United and that group, and we started working with tax sales, and back then it was called control and roll, and then it got turned into wholesaling and assignment. So we started doing a ton of assigning like 2005, 2006. Then the market crashed. We were working at that time for Joe's family's large roofing company, and we had to go back full time into that. We weren't able to do a whole lot, and then in 2000, I guess 11, 12, we kicked it back in again, and it just started going really well. And then we went full time probably 2014, 2015. So
So you guys, you went through the financial crisis, you got out, you came back in, and I know you guys have been wholesaling a bunch of deals. And this deal that you guys actually came across, it was a unique wholesale deal, is what we'll call it. For those of you who don't know, sorry, Jason, I'm just kind of taking over. We're going to jump right into it. Shane recently reached out to me. I would say it was about the fall of last year, saying that he had a 76-unit apartment building. And when a lot of people think about wholesaling, they think only about single-family properties. How did this even come up on your radar? Or was this a goal of yours to try to wholesale something other than single-family properties?
Well, Joe and I had done a lot of commercial stuff when we worked with the roofing company. We worked with some of the largest property management companies and owners really in the world, and just got a good feel for how they did commercial properties. And we dealt with everything: apartment buildings, warehouses. Our family, my wife's family, Joe's family, put the roof on the Amazon building down in Dundalk. That was a $4 million project. So they just had a real good feel for how to deal with commercial stuff. And it wasn't necessarily a goal, but we had dabbled in commercial stuff before. The way this kind of got started, when Joe and I started Perry Hall Investment Group, one of the things that we wanted to do was have monthly or bi-monthly meetups with just different people. And we were trying to keep it small and simple, not these big meetups where it was impersonal. We would invite maybe 10, 15, 20 people. Within that meetings came a lot of different people, and one of them was the woman who ultimately became the seller for the apartment building. So I think it was August last year. It might be right around a year, and it was a Sunday night. I still got the text, and she's texting me, and she says, "Hey, do you have any knowledge or experience in buying or selling apartment buildings?" And you know how we do it. You fake it till you make it. I mean, we had enough experience. Of course, I'm going to say yes.
Right.
So I said yes. The only relationship we really had with her, we built a private money relationship with her. It was just I call her a little young lady, and she was financing our rehabs for us. And I didn't even know she owned it. Honestly, she's a very private person. I had no clue until that Sunday night that she even had the thing. So that's how it started.
So, right. So you cultivated the relationship over a longer period of time. It wasn't just a direct piece of mail. It was you guys had a lender-borrower relationship, and then she felt comfortable with you and said, "Hey, I have this property. What do we do with it?" Right?
Yeah, that's a great point. She is a very private person. She doesn't instantly. It takes a while to build rapport and trust. And that's exactly what happened. It took a long time, but we had a very good relationship where we did our part, she did her part. We kept it real simple. She's a very simple person, just like Ian, very kind of calm, quiet, keeps to themselves. And it was, it just made sense. So basically what she did was she came to us and she said, "Hey, do you guys want to buy this?" And so it takes a minute sometimes to figure out exactly what you're doing, as you guys know, with each individual and with each project. And at that time, that would have been a big stretch for us. I mean, we had maybe 10 or 15 rentals. To go to 76 would have been way out of our league. And so we just told her that. And then what she did from there was she said, we had done a ton of processes with the roofing company. We knew how to do an open bidding process. And so we kind of used that same model. We reached out to basically all the people we knew, and then people that she had saw on Facebook. Of course, some of them she said to us, she would say, "Well, do you like this person or that person?" And we would tell her. If we didn't like them, she didn't want to talk to them. If we knew them and liked them and done business with them, then she would want to talk to them. And honestly, I did not know how long she was going to do it. I mean, I was starting to get exhausted by the amount of people she wanted to talk to. I think we did 15 or 20 meetings.
Yeah. And I think something that's real interesting here is that one of the ways it came up for us, and we'll discuss this a little bit later, is we were advertising, and it came up, and that's how she came across us. So it's really interesting, being able to put yourself out there, you guys facilitating the deal at the same time. I remember when you called me, you're like, "Yeah, so this seller, she's very down to earth. It's not really going to be anything crazy." I was like, "Yeah, whatever." And then you're like, "Well, she's selling it for this," and we're going to get more into this later. "She's selling it for this, and she's willing to finance this much." I was like, "Yeah, whatever. This is a prank call. Thanks, man." But like you, until we explored the option, we had no clue that it was real, and again, it was a real unique situation. Just the way that you even found the deal and you were able to cultivate the deal. And it really helped with you that the seller, you guys did a good job of keeping control of the seller, setting realistic expectations, walking her through the deal. And I think that made our lives a lot easier because COVID happened in the middle of this closing. That threw a wrench into everything that we had to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about obstacles. I mean, everything. Well, first of all, you made a good point there. Like, there's so many people that call us all, and they'll throw out these ridiculous things that aren't real. And so it takes a long time to discern whether or not it's a real deal or whether it's not. And we've been recently just spending more and more time working with the real people on the real deals and trying to slough the people that are just kind of pie in the sky. And they'll call you all the time and they'll say they've got these apartment buildings or this big land deal. And it turns out to be nothing and a big waste of time. So it's a great point that you're making there. In terms of just knowing who to deal with and how to deal with it. And the way you do that, and I'm sure Ian is the same way, we had good relations with Ian. He knew we were the real deal, and that even though it again sounded a little initially like this is too good to be true.
And breaking up a little bit.
It was an absolute. Yep. Better?
Hold on. Yeah. So wait, let me ask a quick question because I don't know this part of the story. So originally, your setup with her was let me help you find a buyer, and then you helped her find a buyer and then she interviewed 15 local real estate investors that you helped. Is that right?
Yeah,
Did I get that part right?
Question. Yep. So the way she wanted to do it. So once she got us out of the way, I'll say that in a blunt way, but really once we decided that we were not interested in it. And honestly, there was really no talk of wholesaling this deal. It wasn't so much a wholesale deal, even though parts of it seemed like that. It really was no talk of that. It was more like, can you help me find the right person to purchase this property? Now, she was, again, very new, which made it very challenging at times because she didn't know a lot about how to do the process. And it was a little frustrating from time to time, but overall she has a lot of wisdom. So basically what she said was, I want to reach out to as many good people as I can, and I don't want to set a price on this. I want the market to determine it, and that was the hardest thing to do, because she everybody wants to know what's the price, and she wouldn't give it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I mean, and a big takeaway that I'm listening to is a few things. Number one, the name of this game is relationship. That's always the case, right? It's relationship. She trusted your guys' relationship that you had with her to help her find a buyer that she didn't have a lot of experience with, right? So she helped you guys helped her find a buyer, and as bigger deals and bigger relationships happen, like in general, and I've noticed it. Listen, if you go buy a $1 McDonald's cheeseburger, like you don't need a relationship with that place. You might not even like the place you're buying it from, or trust them, but you're still going to buy it. But as you get into more sophisticated deals, it's all relationship. That's what it is. I mean, a typical 1 unit fix and flip or wholesale deal or whatever on the smaller scale, maybe that's just more transactional, but certainly on the bigger deals, it works. I mean, there's been lots of deals that we've invested capital in that if it wasn't for that right person who we've had a relationship with, it would be a deal that we would never do, and vice versa. So like she even told you straight up, I want you to find somebody who you're comfortable with to begin with. She wouldn't even talk to people that you weren't comfortable with. So that just goes a long way. And again, another part is typically a lot of these deals you got to work hard to get. They're either inside deals, you got to build a relationship, and you got to just have boots on the ground on a regular basis to even get into the door. And the question that a lot of people always have is, oh, where do you find these deals? Where do you find these deals? And it's like, listen, there's no secret sauce. Go out and work your butt off and find them. They're not going to jump out and kick you in the face. I mean, yes, there could be on MLS. Yes, there could be through Bandit side. Yes, they could be from wholesalers. Yes, it could be from a real estate agent. But you got to blanket the area with all different types of all different strategies, and those opportunities will come. And every single experienced real estate investor listening to this right now or watching this or however they're absorbing this knows that to be true. That if you go and you track every one of the deals that you've bought or sold or lent on, they all come from different aspects. They're not all one lead source.
Yeah, and I think another valid point is that it's kind of getting glossed over just because how we're doing this presentation. But something that Shane brought up is that first off, they were mature enough to say we have no business being in this deal. Like, and I told him the very first time he called me, I said that's a way more mature answer than I would have said, because I would have been like, yeah, how can I do this, right? So number one, that, but then number two is to figure out a way to stay in the deal that was advantageous for her and advantageous for you guys to still get monetized some way, shape, or form in the deal, rather than just saying, whatever, this deal didn't work for us, we're on to the next thing, right? So there was definitely two levels of things there that kept you guys in this deal, and you were able to monetize it and truly help the seller, which a lot of wholesalers say, I'm out here to help the seller. No, you literally truly helped the seller out, and she really did rely on you. So
yeah, number one, relationships, like you said. I'm all about relationships, and Ian knows this. Like, we've had lunch together a few times. I enjoy just sitting down, talking to people, listening to their backgrounds, understanding them. I'll tell you, one of the cool, special things about Ian and Dan, and it's so interesting how they are childhood friends and how they become partners for life. And, I'm sure Ian shared some of the story before, but, these guys are from Philly. They want to be together. They want to become firemen together. They just literally travel everywhere together and do everything. It's just such a special relationship. And it's so powerful that it's worth talking about even more. So that was a really cool relationship. I'm glad to know them. Both Ian and Dan are very thankful for our relationship. And then Judy, again, really super, super nice lady, and her sister and her family. And ultimately, Jason, which is really cool, is I'm from Baltimore. I'm a homer. I love Baltimore. I'm never going anywhere. I grew up in Dundalk. And to be able to be a part of something like this, where we're bringing two families together, and they're all about legacy. Everybody was about legacy. They had a long legacy. The really amazing part of this is the amount of money that was made in this small apartment building over 50 years. And then to be able to turn it over to two guys who were just the same way, all about legacy, was a really, for me, that was the coolest part.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't know. I don't know too much about that. So that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's when you talk about relationship, the more stronger and in-depth you can build that relationship, the more special the event is. Like, when I go buy this apartment building, it's a sense of pride. And I know that Ian and Dan are going to maintain exactly what they say. I don't have to worry about that. And that's the huge portion of it. And Ian knows too, like, if there's any trouble, he can reach out to me. And she is the same exact way. Everyone is in it for a win-win. And it's like a special thing.
Yep.
It's handing over a baton.
Yep. That's great. No, that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah. So we're gonna jump deeper. I know you're on the road. We're gonna jump deeper into the case study. We appreciate you bringing up, how you got and how you found the deal, and I think you got a lot of valid points here on how to cultivate relationships. And a lot of people lose sight on the deals that are right in front of them, and that's all they care about, low-hanging fruit. And this was a deal that you cultivated, you worked, it didn't work for you, and you still found a way to make money for it. I think that's really cool all the way through.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, are you
cool.
With me, or you want me involved in the case any further?
Well, I mean, you can stay on if you want. It's up to you. We're just gonna go. I know you're driving, and I know you got an appointment coming up. So,
Good.
Go ahead, Ian. Why don't you start up with this presentation? If anyone has any questions along the way, feel free to chime in, ask any questions.
I did it last time, but Jay, if you can monitor the questions. But either way, here you go. Here's a 76-unit apartment building. It's over in the northeast section of Baltimore. As Shane said, the family owned it pretty much since it was built in the late 50s, early 60s. Maybe it was mid 60s, but either way, they've owned it since day one. And it was a real unique situation. Again, when Shane called us up, he's like, hey man, seller's super realistic. She wants to sell it. She wants to owner finance it. When we were looking at it, it might have been a little bit of a stretch for us, but we knew we could handle it with the amount of units we had. We just did a 34-unit building. The multifamily asset class is safe. It's nice because we can put someone over there. It's self-contained management. It's just big enough. And the other nice thing is, even though it looks dated with this green tile, is that it's the property overall was well maintained. It wasn't it wasn't it wasn't destroyed. It wasn't mismanaged in that sense. It just needed a little bit lift of life. As Shane said, we were out there. We were advertising for our book. The deal came through Shane. She saw us advertising for our book, commenting on Facebook. All these little things that sometimes you're like, why do I do this? Why do I do this? Why do I do this? Well, that book right there that we wrote, while it might be free to ship out, it just brought us a $5 million asset. So that was really cool. Again, it's located in a stable part of Baltimore. Seller was super realistic. Judy and her sister are the two most down-to-earth people that I've ever dealt with. We couldn't believe the situation that we wound up in. And the biggest thing was that, they had some family stuff going on. They were tired of the current management. They didn't want to deal with having to renovate it. They didn't want to have to deal with increasing the rents. They didn't want to own it any longer. They just wanted to sell it and move it on. And that's, we'll get into the owner financing term here in a second. But you can see what the place looked like. Nothing to write home about. It hasn't been updated since the 60s, maybe the 80s. They've just been turning tenants over, keeping the same rents. I think if we wait long enough, maybe this tile will come back in. Jay, if you want some of this green tile, I got some. I can install it in your house.
Perfect. Can't wait.
I got parquet floors as well. I got these huge doors here that weigh a ton, that they're a nightmare to work on. But you can see it's dated, but it's clean, and that's really what it was all about. So for us, it was a major value add potential. We could come in here, we can do capital expenditures, knowing that if we want to own it for a long period of time, we could. There's additional revenue sources such as parking and storage. We could reduce the operating expenses. The number one thing we could do is increase the rents by fixing it up. I mean, this is the show apartment. It looks tenfold better, not where we would want it to be, but it's tenfold better. We can get a premium. And that's the name of the game, is increasing the NOI, increasing the value, because everybody that's involved in the deal, ultimately, it pays off better for them. So, here's the average rent and unit count, and you can see we believe we can get up $100. I can tell you right now, we just smoked one yesterday on a 2-bedroom with a balcony for $1,100. So this was our estimate when we went into this. We believe we're going to exceed this, but when you're talking to your investors and everybody else that's involved in the deal, you want to set realistic expectations. The market dictates a little bit higher. The nice thing about coming in and buying the asset at a good price is you don't need to be the top of the market guy. You can be in second place and keep pushing the rents behind the first place guy and still get tenants. So that was something that we liked. And again, we could come in here, do the roofs. It's got the original windows from the 1960s that we're going to replace. We got to replace the roofs. All these things that are getting replaced, if we want to own this thing for 30 years, we're comfortable doing it, just like one of our single family places. I got to click this. Do I got to click this? There you go. So this is what a semi-updated unit is. This is the show office. We haven't had a chance to completely update one, or I don't have official pictures on a completely updated one. This is similar to what we'd see. We're going to get rid of the carpet, put laminate flooring in, update the kitchen, make the place presentable, right? Like, bring it into today's world. So I know what most people are wondering is, how the heck do we structure this deal? And sorry, I put this together yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to comb all the way through it. I apologize. But Jason's intimate with the deal too, so he can ask plenty of questions. But so she was willing to owner finance 90% of it at a 5% interest rate, which when we negotiated this was pre-COVID and the world wasn't collapsing. We went with that, which we thought was more than fair. Once again, she was very realistic. When COVID happened, we went back to her and said, "Hey, look, we really want to get this property into a good state. We want to navigate this whole COVID thing. We still want to close. Will you be willing to hold 6 months to the back of the loan?" She was willing to do that. So that increases money that we're able to go back and reinvest in the property, increase the value of the asset. We wound up raising capital for the 10% closing cost and construction money to get the deal done. As like every other deal, our investors are receiving 8%, along with some profit sharing on top of the deal to get their return up closer to a 10%. The nice thing is, though, that they actually invested in the deal. They're actual owners. It's just not debt. Like, I know a lot of people go out and raise money and do debt. We actually gave them an equity piece. So they got tax benefits. It's better than debt investing. It's stable. It's long-term. And you know what? You get to own a piece of a $5 million asset with little to no headaches, right? This one's going to be a little hard to see, but this is our pro forma. It's almost impossible to see. But long story short, investors should hit about a 10% year over year, and it should be about a 16 to 17% IRR. So again, it's really cool to come in here, buy this nice, stable, clean asset, and everybody's able to work together, co-invest on the deal, and there's money to be made from the wholesaler to the investors to us as the principals. The seller is continuing to make money through interest and not having to pay a ton of capital gains through since they're doing an owner finance note. So it's a win-win all around.
Yeah, I got a few questions for you on this deal that I think would be valuable to everybody. So how long did this deal take from start to finish, from when you first knew about this deal all the way to the actual closing date?
So we found out about it, I believe Shane says August. I think it was September. We met the seller first. She sat down, just like you said, we sat down with everybody. We had a conversation. Then she picked the top three. Then we walked the property. Then we bid it out. Then actually she wound up going with somebody else. I randomly called her about something completely off topic. And then we wound up winding back up in the deal. Then COVID, we were supposed to close in March. And then COVID happened. Settlement got delayed because nobody knew what was going on. Again, she was super realistic. We didn't wind up closing until June, the middle of June. So just say September 1 to about June 15th.
Yeah. I mean, that's a long time for a deal, but again, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. That's what happens. So a question from George: what were the terms and the monthly payment for the $4.5 million that you got seller financed?
So she seller financed about $4.5 million, our monthly payment. So again, we're in owner financing terms. So for those of you that don't know, the multifamily world, you can actually get 40-year debt. So we mirrored something like that. We were able to pay a few bucks more and beat out a couple of these guys. So our term financing, I believe, is about 20 grand a month. Don't quote me off the top of my head, but I believe it's about 20 grand a month. And that's on a 40-year note at 5% interest P&I.
Got it. Okay. Is owner financing typical on these bigger projects like that?
Yeah, I would say owner financing is typical, but usually not in this sense. A lot of the times, most people would go back, and again, for us, when she presented, I want to owner finance it, we kind of were like, oh yeah, that's cool, but we'd rather go to the bank. And she's like, no, I want to owner finance 90% of it. Well, that's unheard of, right? She's doing it for some tax implication stuff on her side, and that's why she was willing to do this. A lot of the time on these big deals, usually you get first debt, first position debt. You have about 25% equity you need to bring. A lot of times, most sellers will hold back 10 to 15%. So for someone to hold back 90% is unique, but for someone to hold back on this type of deal is not necessarily that unique.
Got it. I had to look who this Facebook user was because it sometimes doesn't show up. It was Pete. Thanks, Pete.
Pete
super excited about this one. Good things happen to good people. Thank you, Peter. Hold on. There's a few other questions that are like not popping through here, but I see on social. There's another one I just saw. Where'd that go? Where'd your little pro forma go?
Oh, I don't know. I was trying to. There it is. Someone just said, I have 4 units and would love to do deals like this. How do you go from buying individual units to something big like this? I think we've talked about this a lot on the show, and I think Jason can probably hit this home run way more than I can, is that it's hitting singles. You know what I mean? Like, we did a bunch of single families, and yeah, we always dreamt, and we're like, oh yeah, we'd love to do that deal, love to do that deal. But, you know, are you really in a position to do it? Just like Shane said, you know, you got like 15 rentals. Are they really in a position to go out and buy 76 units? Probably not. Could they do it? Absolutely. Is it going to be a lot of headaches and a lot of learning curves on someone else's dime? Probably. But, you know, over a long period of time, hitting singles, you land the big deals. Like, I know, Jason, you guys have been doing some commercial financing stuff, some larger type deals, but I don't think you could be there without doing the singles first, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, you guys have a platform to put this in. You know, a lot of people don't have the platform. And again, I'm not saying that you can't go from 3 units to 100 units. You certainly can, and you work your butt off to do it. But I think it makes it easier if you have some sort of platform to do so. I mean, for instance, like if we expand into a different geographical region to lend, I have the whole back end in place, right? Our model's set up. If you're a house flipper and you want to say, I'm a DC area house flipper, I want to go to Baltimore, you typically have that platform in place that you can expand to do that. And you guys had that. Instead of having, your 100 individual units, now you just, added 76 at a time. And I mean, I've seen what Ian's been doing over the last few months. And I mean, it's a little stressful ramping that up. Talk about how many people you have in place to handle a project like this.
Yeah, so I mean, our team was, obviously small, but we have to add another maintenance person. We have to add another. We actually wound up adding an office person who we're actually grateful for because we've talked about it for years. But we finally pulled the trigger and did that. So we got our project manager. We'll wind up having 2 full-time maintenance men, and we're going to wind up having a property manager. So. Well, it's a good thing that you grow. You also add overhead and you add bumps and bruises and everything else that comes along with that. So, but again, yes, we had the platform. We had Ryan in place as a project manager. We had Gus in place as a maintenance man. So to have somebody else come in and be a property manager, we had the systems in place. It was just a matter of saying, okay, here's our system, step into it. Now let's go. Yeah. So a lot of struggles over the years have finally paid off because hiring the right person and training has been a lot easier,
Yeah, I can see that. And also I think a trap that I think some people would fall into is typically, let's say you only have 4 units right now and you're self-managing them, right? Because at 4 units, it's, somewhat tough to get property management in place on that just because, might not financially make sense. Well, if you mimic that business model, right? And then you buy, based on the same numbers, right? Economics, the same numbers, and you buy a project like this, well, you might forget that the numbers, you're not, you got to replace yourself on a project like this. You can't be the full-time person that's doing, maintenance, repairs, working on leases, answering your phones, doing everything. And I feel like a lot of people forget that as they scale, they need to scale people as well. You have that in place, right? You already knew exactly, hey, if I'm going to take on this, more units, how many more people am I going to need in place? Yeah, I could, utilize this person to help with this. I could utilize this person to help with that. But so many people forget that with scale. After you have a platform or a system in place, you can just kind of bring people in. I mean, Shane, who was on here with us earlier, wholesaling properties, however many properties they wholesale, like let's say he does 10 or 12 wholesales a month and he needs to scale to 20, or he wants to scale to 20, potentially he could do that under that same umbrella. Or he brings in another person to do that. He already knows what that metrics is based on the size of the operation. So again, I don't think that, this isn't about talking somebody out of going from a 4 unit to a 76 unit, because in general, so many people, their first project might be a bigger project. But again, I think it makes it easier. I mean, I'm always a big advocate of scaling up small. It's the same thing as the snowball and compound interest. You scale. When we ramped up to do 25 loans a month through Hard Money Bankers, our first year, I think we did on an average of about just under 2. The next year was about 3, and it scaled slowly, right? And again, things, it doesn't, unfortunately, stuff doesn't happen overnight. I'm not saying you can't go all in and try to make it work. And again, if you have a great home run deal that falls in your lap, I think you'd be a fool to pass on that deal, obviously. But you should do that deal, but keep that in mind. So another question, I don't know why some of these, depending on where they're commenting, they're not coming through. So Jason Woodford commented, do your investors have to be accredited?
Yes, that is a preferred that they should be accredited investors. There are some exemptions that you're able to utilize for friends and family that have prior relationships, but most of these types of deals, that's what you're going to find. The problem with taking on sophisticated investors, non-accredited investors, is that you have to have your books audited every year by a third party. That's one of the requirements. So I know a lot of people aren't willing to jump through the hoops. So that becomes an issue over the long term. It's an added cost that most people don't want to deal with. Not that you're hiding anything, it's just a headache.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and also this is a big process, a big project. You got to do it the right way. You know, separate entities, separate everything. It's a good.
Yeah, that was a nightmare. You know, it's set up like one of these big Wall Street deals where you have to have a holding entity that has a parent entity, and then this one does that. You know, it's like you start talking to these SEC lawyers, and it's like they're talking Spanish. You know, and again, going from 4 units to this, we do have some background in it, and I understood it. Thank God for Google and YouTube and everything else. But again, going from 4 units to that, just that simple cost of having to add a holding company could be something that throws you.
Yeah, well,
right.
You didn't own 4 units. That was a listener. You're talking in general.
It's an issue.
No, I know for somebody else, but I'm saying on your end, you had 100 units already, so you already had a lot. You had a big platform to start with. In general. And here's the interesting thing. I don't know about you, but I feel like around here it's hard to get your hands on multifamily projects. Everyone wants a multifamily project, but they're hard to find. They don't really exist. And the ones that do exist, to be honest, they don't seem like they have a ton of. They might have a lot of good cash flow, and on paper they might work, but in general they don't have a ton of value to them. And I feel like everyone just wants to analyze just based on kind of made up cap rates.
I think dollar for dollar, this one compared to the one out in West Virginia, I don't want to say West Virginia's going to outperform it, but I think if you look at a dollar for dollar metric, the value, those types of areas, there's a lot of money to be had. And I think Sam Zell talks about it, is that he had a chance when he first started. I think he said he could have went to Vegas or one of the big Reno or one of these big cities, and he went to Michigan, right? Like he's like, I knew I could make money in Michigan, and I knew I could go to Austin and make money, and I knew I could go to all these little towns and go make money, comparatively speaking, rather than go and playing, excuse my French, but a dick measuring competition in these areas. Yep. These types of deals don't pop up here locally. Like I'm going to be honest here, like this one landed on our laps, and we're grateful for it. To go out, I agree with you, Jay. Like to go out and find these deals locally are tough. Do I think you can find them elsewhere? Absolutely. Do you have a whole new layer of crap you're gonna have to deal with? Sure. I wouldn't even know how to begin to vet. Like that one in West Virginia, the only reason I did it was because we were comfortable with the property manager who was a friend of a friend, and you can tell the guy knew what he was talking about. But can you imagine vetting a property manager out in like Oklahoma and be like, yeah, man, like just go ahead. I'm buying this $5 million asset, and you're gonna manage it for me.
Well, I mean, my business model and your business model is very localized, and I'm not saying that you couldn't buy, lend, flip houses elsewhere. I don't see how we could do it. I don't see how you could do it. It's not for us, but it's certainly done from people. But again, I feel like we're conservative. I feel like you're conservative. Like you want to buy a good asset. I think on paper, I'm certain there's assets like this kind of all over the place. But we're looking for stuff kind of on our home turf and stuff that that we can touch, feel, be around, drive to on a regular basis. That's always been
I don't want to get too far off topic, but it's very easy. If this same deal is in, let's just say Oklahoma, and it's in a really bad part of town, but all you can concentrate on is the numbers, and you have no clue what the area is like, this deal is a great deal, right? But you have blinders on because you don't know anything else that's going on in the area versus someone coming to Baltimore and like, oh yeah, I got a deal at Fulton and North or Monroe and North, which Jason probably has no clue where it is because I know he's not driving there. But let's just say the same deal is there. They're going to have blinders on if they're in Oklahoma looking at this deal. They're like, oh my God, look at the cash flow. Look at this, look at that. But they don't know about the area. They don't have the intimate knowledge that we have. And I think that's something you need to be careful if you are going to invest afar.
Well, especially if you're the operator.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a limited, if you have limited partner, or you are just an investor in the deal and you're looking at a certain return, you're underwriting for that. Yeah, obviously the project's important, but your real underwriting, is the operator,
right.
The general partner. It would if you were investing in a deal like this, and it was someone else's deal and you were just putting up capital or you're putting up some other resource, you're investing in Dan and Ian. And obviously the deal has got to be important as the backstop, but like the operator is the important part. So
yeah, and I would say most of our capital, I don't know if this question is going to come up, but most of the capital that was raised, it wasn't really much asset. Sure, the asset had something to do with it. I mean, Jason, you know some of the investors. I think a lot of them were really basing their investment betting on us versus betting on the asset. The underlying asset protects them, but ultimately they're betting on us to do the right job.
Well, and the underlying asset is based on the interest rate return and however else the structure was that they were getting on the economic side. That obviously that was the important part, but at the same time, if you have a bad operator is always going to take down a bad deal. That's just what happens. That's the reason why in lending and in partnerships, you never go into business with a bad apple, a bad character, because a bad character will always take down a good deal. I've seen deals that are purchased for $100,000 that need very, very little work on it and could sell for 200 and they get messed up. And I see very, very skinny margin deals that work out very, very nicely because you have a good operator. That's just what it is. So, all right. Well, is there anything else related to this that you think would give all of our viewers some additional knowledge that we're missing?
Just keep going out there and hitting singles. The 4-unit guy and anybody else that's watching is that you continue to do the right thing over and over. Like Pete said, good things happen to good people eventually. It was right place, right time, being out there, doing our thing, putting ourselves out there, and just doing the right job over and over and over again and never losing sight of ultimately what we were trying to get to. And if you're going to do a deal like this, underwrite them, do your thing, make sure you're accounting for everything, be super cautious and set realistic expectations, and hopefully you can exceed them.
Yeah. And it seems if anyone has any other questions, feel free to comment. We're about to hop off in a sec. So if you have any questions, this is the time to ask. Just comment below and we can answer those. Yeah. And I mean, the good part about this deal is there's just a lot of value adds on this. You're able to get into a project where potentially it was mismanaged, potentially you could save costs here. You had resources in place that you could allocate there anyways, right?
Yep.
So, it makes it easier. Let's say you have an in-house property manager, an in-house bookkeeper, an in-house maintenance person. All of a sudden, you're already paying them full-time, part-time, whatever case is over here on this project for you to add them to an additional project to help you out. I mean, that's where all these big entrepreneurs and business owners are able to scale in so many different ways in all their businesses, is because they have a platform in place all the time, and you just put it into the platform, right? You take these projects and we put it into our normal setup. It's, hey, I'm going to have this person do the books. I'm going to have this person do this. I'm going to have this person do this. I mean, as we've kind of expanded and invested in other businesses over the years, it's been the same setup. Is it something that we could help? Is there a way that we could value add and work ourselves in so we can make a return that it was still a win-win for people? Could I figure out a way to put things in place to help this company grow? So, it's just, as far as I'm concerned, it's 76 units, but it's just a new business that you guys purchased and you allocated your resources that you had, and it's gonna be a good one. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with this and what the numbers are, and we'll hop on maybe in another few months or maybe a year from now to recap this again, to see where you were kind of the first quarter of taking ownership, and then where you ended up being a year later.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. Plus, it'd keep us on our toes and make sure we're doing our job. So yeah, I definitely look forward to it.
Yep. Cool. We got anything else to add before we hop off?
No, man. I think next week I know Sean Magner's gonna jump on here. If anybody else is interested in jumping on, you guys can bring value. You want to do a case study, you have something valuable to bring. You want to talk about your business, or maybe you just want to jump on here and you have a deal that you want to work through and talk about. We'll do it here live. The more people we can help out, the better. So if you want to get a hold of me, I'm Ian at equitywarehouse.com. And if you want to find Jason, he's Jason at hardmoneybankers.com. And we're welcome to have anybody on the show that wants to join us.
You know it. I can just put my email just like that.
There you go.
Make it easy.
Email him. So
what's that?
I said email him. So, but either way, yeah, man, love for anybody to reach out, and we'll catch you guys.
Hey,
what's that?
Hey, tell us about the eviction thing real quick, because because I need to know that too.
1 second. Go ahead. Someone just popped up a question. If you want to answer that real quick, there's some stuff going on with the CARES Act. Hold on.
Yeah. So, can anyone recommend any books? So, Ian's got Subsidized. Currently, I've got 2 books. Property Hackers is our most recent one, propertyhackers.com, and the Whiteboard book as well. But some of the recent books that we have bought and listened to recently, Sam Zell's book. I'm just looking at some of the recent books that I've read, but Sam Zell's book is probably your first one on your list that you should definitely check out. It's called Am I Being Too Subtle? It's Sam Zell book. He's one of the biggest multifamily property owners in the entire country. Super good book. He also is on Tim Ferriss's podcast. You can YouTube Sam Zell, Zell, Sam Zell. But his book's great. Really great. And we did a book review on it. Another book that Ian and I both have a liking to is The Snowball. It's one of Warren Buffett's books, and it's long. Actually, both these books are long. It's called The Snowball. Freaking great. The only thing with Warren Buffett, he's not a real estate investor. He's typically invests in stock markets and private businesses. But I mean, unbelievable, his stuff. It's so good. Just the way that he thinks about money, the way he invests money. So that's a really, really good one. And another book that we read, I guess we read it probably 2 years ago when it came out, was called The Third Door by Alex Benion. Yeah. Great book as well. So start with those. I can't see who asked this question because I'm not on my phone right now, and it just says Facebook user because you commented through one of our groups and not our pages, which is fine, no problem. But check out those 3 books, and then after that, circle back, and happy to give you some more recommendations.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Those are all good books. So real quick, in Baltimore, there was a new order issued on July 17th. On July 17th by the chief judge of the district court, who's revised the filing procedure to be in compliance with those that are in the CARES Act. If you're in the CARES Act, there's a whole stack of papers that you need to fill out that will guide you through how to handle your property in the CARES Act. So if your property does not fall under the CARES Act, which there's going to be much debate on, you also need to wait for a 30-day if you're on a 30-day notice, they're not going to start hearing court cases till August 25th. So there's a bunch of stuff out there. I'd follow up and read up on it, but it sounds like if you have a tenant that's going to fall under the CARES Act, there's going to be a level of red tape that you're going to have to get through if you're filing an eviction, a holdover, or anything along those lines.
Gotcha.
Sorry, it was nothing super exciting, but that's what I got. But I do know I think they open Monday, I think is the big day for courts to open up. So game time. It'll be interesting. I think I saw a report somewhere out there that's like 12 million people are pending nationwide on the eviction stop order. So see if there's any last minute injunctions that are filed.
So are they just first come, first serve based off dates?
Yeah, so they're going to go through anything that was pending prior to, because they've reached out to us on several cases to say, hey, what's going on? These people still in eviction status. Then they're going to start hearing anything that hadn't been heard that was already filed on, and then they're going to hear all the new cases. So courts are going to be backed up for a hot second.
Forever.
for a while. So
I mean, I remember when Prince George's County was so backed up with foreclosures. I mean, it took 9 months to get crap on record.
Yeah. Baltimore County was the same way. The city we got like that for a while. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Gotcha.
So
all right. Well, we got Chad Magner next Wednesday. Maybe we'll do a show over the weekend or Monday or Tuesday.
Sounds like a plan.
Anything in between, feel free to reach out, everybody.
All right.
Check you later.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too.